Hungry Trilobyte podcast would like to start by acknowledging these fine conventions. SoonerCon, Oklahoma's longest-running pop culture convention, is ready to return in 2023. SoonerCon 31 will be held in Norman, Oklahoma on June 30th through July 2nd, 2023. Gaming, cosplay, autographs, and an art auction await. Visit SoonerCon.com for more details. The Hellmouth Convention, where fandoms bleed together. Evoking the center of the mystical convergence, our event includes fandoms and travelers from all over the world. Like the Hellmouth itself, things gravitate toward it that you might not find elsewhere. The celebration is scheduled for June 9th through 11th, 2023 in Los Angeles, California. Go to thehellmouth.org to plan your visit.
Tap today, we have Brad Jones, the Cinema Snob. How are you doing this fine afternoon?
I'm doing good, really good. The couch is comfortable. I got my blankets here and everything. I'm doing good. It's a typical Thursday.
This is a work environment for me. This is the podcasting gear that I have. So I firmly believe in comfort breeds creativity.
Is it like so over in my setup in there where I'm editing, I got my chair, the computer, everything. I could probably have like an angle like yours where it would look fine in the background. But if you saw the rest of the room, it's like the cluttered gum wrappers, soda cans, stuff like that. Is that kind of a thing that's going on there right now?
It is.
Excellent.
And this angle, it works for today. This may not be what I do down the road. I'm actually rebuilding a physical studio. Right now. It's a longer term project, so I'm experimenting with what could be a permanent setup one day.
Perfect. I mean, it's kind of the case here too. Like even on the couch here in my living room, I got random, there's a thing of salsa sitting right here. Here's some pepper, a little leftover pasta that I had earlier.
I don't want to go too far to get my beverage or my snack.
That
takes away from the flow. So I already kind of gave the basics on there.
I need my chips in reaching distance.
Yeah. I already mentioned you are the Cinema Snob. That is your program on YouTube. And that is the basis for kind of where you built your, I don't want to say brand, but that's what you're doing.
Yeah, I've been playing the Cinema Snob quite a while now. I think it was around when YouTube started that we had started out, and at the time there wasn't a lot in the way of shows like that kind of spotlighted different things that I grew up with, like horror movies, exploitation flicks, and I wanted to do that in a comedic sense, in character, because that kind of the character reviews were kind of just at the very beginning at the time. So I made my niche like horror and exploitation, and it certainly evolved from there, between how I play the character, how the show is written, even the different types of movies that get shown. But I still love doing it. Like it's really cool to still be doing this for a living.
What I started looking at it and trying to ponder exactly how does it work? What do I like about this? And it started to click that you have a way of fleshing out. And I'm saying this as a movie fan. I'm not picking on people because I'm throwing myself under the same bus here. Us movie fans have this way of taking ourselves way too seriously when we look at something that's supposed to be a subjective thought.
Yeah.
But we appoint ourselves the heroes of it, and you really hit the home on that.
Yeah, that it definitely started out like that for sure. Where it was a satire of really what you just said, where it's like a very highbrow kind of cynical guy who, for whatever reason, is tasked with talking about stuff like porno holocaust or Wanda the sadistic hypnotist or Burial Ground, a lot of those earlier episodes. And the character has evolved over time, because otherwise I've been doing it like 15 years now. Otherwise it'd be kind of 15 years of just the same joke, really. But there is still like that element of snark that's in it, certainly. And the character does take himself very seriously and does like intentionally say a lot of things that are cartoonishly wrong about the movie, but in a jokey sense. So that element is still there. and it's still really really fun to play. Like a lot of us who have been doing it for so long, we we could kind of portray it in our sleep, really, if we wanted to, or sometimes the voice will even come out if I'm like even just reviewing a movie as myself.
And if you strip out the humor and you just look at it point by point, knowing that obviously there's going to be some jokes thrown in there, you still get a pretty good analysis of the movie from at least somebody's perspective. You come away
Yeah.
thinking, hey, I get it.
Oh yeah, especially as the show has gone on. At the beginning of the series, it was very much just kind of about the character cartoonishly reacting to yeah, stuff like Burial Ground, Nights of Terror, and things like that. But at the time, YouTube had a you couldn't go over 10 minutes in a YouTube video at the time, like when it first started. So they were very short, non-linear, kind of compact. But as the show has gone on, and certainly the more genres that get talked about, yeah, through all of the jokes and while still kind of talking in character, I am breaking down like yeah, how I feel about a certain movie. Like it's something I love, like off the top of my head, I did one on Halloween 3 Season of the Witch, and there's certainly jokes through it. It's all told in humor, but it is like getting in deep about the movie and what, for me, what works about it, and why I love it while still remaining in character.
And YouTube has had this effect of letting people like us really start to pick apart movies that previously didn't really get their due.
Yeah.
Which is, the types of movies that you're bringing out are definitely, I think, are in that category.
Oh yeah, like video violence, video violence 2, what are some other ones? Greta the something, what was that, Ilsa knockoff? I've been doing it so long, the titles are all kind of running together. Like, was it Greta the she was something, not Ilsa She Wolf of the SS, but the other one. So yeah, kind of giving a lot of these movies a spotlight that they don't get talked about a whole lot.
I spent some time watching I love MST3K the movie, as I know many
Oh
people
yeah.
do, but outside our circle, it doesn't get talked about.
Mm-hmm. Mystery Science Theater the movie.
Yeah,
Yeah.
even people who are fans of the show often haven't seen the movie. They just kind of skim over it, doing their watch through.
Oh yeah, like that was a good one to talk about. I did really like that episode because it certainly presented a challenge in that, like, oh yeah, I can definitely talk about how much I like this movie and comparing the movie to an episode of the show, and even some behind the scenes things with the movie as well. But it was one of those episodes where I was like, okay, let me figure out how to do this, because I'm talking over this movie that, and comedically, that is in and of itself talking over another movie comedically. It was like, all right, I want to see if I can do this, and I really really liked that episode a lot. For me, I thought it came out really well.
I would agree, and not just because I'm partial to the source material,
Yeah.
but the fact that you managed to bring out this weird moment in time and talk about how it was. What I love about that, and people don't get the jokes about how it is talking about its own creation in some ways. That the studio got involved, it was a disaster, and yet how many movies don't get to tell that story?
Oh yeah, and I'm glad that that episode turned out well, because I hated editing the episode, and I'll tell you why. I got halfway through editing it, and I had to go do something else. I probably had to go see a movie or something. And then when I came back, I had to then like edit another movie review, and I don't know what happened, but I lost like half of the first half of the episode. And not lost, is I still had the footage and everything. It's just like the edited version of it in my software. I don't know if I just mistakenly saved over it or did something, but like half of it was gone and I had to start over with editing. And it took me a few days to get back to it because I was so defeated when that happened that I was like, all right, I need like a few days to like have some distance from it and then go back and start the editing again. But then when I started the editing again, it it was actually fine because I already kind of knew how to edit it. So it did go by a little faster, honestly. But ooh, I was glad that people really liked that episode because it was a pain to edit it.
And it's one of those cases where, I mean, you have your audience built by that point. You know, people are waiting for the content to come in, and
Mm-hmm.
you have that pressure that, man, I have to deliver this. That they know I'm churning something out, or God forbid you get late or behind, and
Sure.
yeah, then the things. And that's not fair to the individual creator too, because we're just regular people. We have other obligations. We announce a time, and I try to stick to our weekly release schedule.
Yeah.
Things don't always work that way.
Oh, sure. And luckily, like as long as you've got like good communication with your fans, with your viewers, the people who subscribe to you, they're pretty cool. Like they're really really pretty chill. And and if there is episodes that we're kind of late on, we still like to have something else up. Like for instance, now I'm starting to drift more into longer episodes.
Saw that, yeah.
Yeah, because we do like to evolve with YouTube and the kinds of videos that people like now. And a lot of our most popular stuff right now is the longer episodes, is stuff like on a mini series or the year in reviews, which are like my favorite episodes to do now, like talking about all the movies in a single year. And so now I'm working on 1960 in film, where I'm going through all the movies of 1960. So that'll eventually be up and it'll be a supersized episode, but we still will have other things up through the week. That last Monday I had up. There's smaller shows I do. Like there's a show called Brad Tries where I'm just having some like gimmicky fast food item or a soda or something kind of weird. And also the vlog reviews that are short. They're they range between 3 to like 6 minutes long. If I'm working on a supersized episode, which I'm doing that quite a bit now, I still have those other things like the smaller reviews and that Brad tries and all of those.
What I like about this is that you're flying in the face, and I think you're doing it rightly, of what used to be the golden advice on YouTube is that you have to have your specific content for your specific audience, and don't mess with the algorithm, don't confuse the audience. They used to say if you want to make a different type of show, you need a whole different channel for that, because that
Yeah.
otherwise you'd lose your audience. And I think the audience has shown that no, they'll go come to the buffet, they'll pick what they want.
Yeah, the ones who like have like their notifications turned on or maybe visit the channel every day. And also giving early access as well, because we've also got a Patreon. So when I am working on a supersized episode, if people still want that content weekly, content being the Cinema Snob, if they still want that weekly, they can go to our Patreon, because I do put up the supersized episodes in chunks. Like yeah, the 1961 I'm working on right now, I've got the first quarter of it over on Patreon right now. Later on today, I'll be done editing the next quarter, and that'll be on Patreon. So if people do want to see something weekly when I'm working on something like that, they can go to our Patreon and get like those rewards and benefits and everything. And then when the whole episode is done, it'll be public and it'll be like a 2-hour episode.
That's a really clever way of using Patreon. I've seen it used clumsily, and I've seen it used very well, and that's definitely a very well way of using it.
Yeah, people that I think that's a majority of the reason why people go to our Patreon, is to get like that early access. And we also do AMAs on there, and once in a while we'll have a poll episode where yeah, people can go there and pick on what episode they want to see next. And yeah, but it's mainly like the early content that people like that for.
Before you got into this show, before you came up with the character and even YouTube, when you would have chats with your friends about movies, because I'm guessing you did, this
Oh
was probably
yeah,
something.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
you had that click.
Hmm.
Did you find it difficult to bring up certain types of movies that not knowing that if you had that common ground with somebody?
No, not with my friends, because our tastes were fairly similar, or similar enough, really. Like maybe not all of us like the exploitation flicks, but some did. And even the ones where like maybe it wasn't their cup of tea, they would still like seeing them every now and then. Or it could be something that could be thrown on and we can like, shoot the breeze during it or something like that. And no, like we all, so I used to have a show called Midnight Screenings, or I still do have it. It's just like a requested show now. But midnight screenings for a long time, it was the group of us going to see whatever new movie came out, and then we're in the car talking about it afterwards. And that very much kind of is how we were in real life too. It played up a little for the camera because we got to be kind of entertaining, but the way our rapport was with each other, no, that would be how we would just shoot the breeze about movies with each other. And we'd always like doing that in front of the camera too. When we were in high school, we had a public access show, and
Whoa, that's cool.
yeah, we did. We had a public access series for a little bit, and I don't even want to try going back and looking for it because I'm sure it's awful.
It's
But
okay.
yeah, yeah. But I'm sure our producer at the time, it was a great guy. I'm sure he's got the tapes of it sitting around somewhere. Maybe I'll have to try to get in touch with him sometime. But yeah, those are probably floating around on VHS somewhere.
You start out somewhere and you need to do something just to stretch your wings for the first time. I remember when I was in college and I would have these discussions, even though I had a clique of friends that were similar to me in a lot of ways, there would still be people that would look at me and say, "You like the Super Mario Brothers movie?"
Oh, sure. Hmm.
And I just feel like that when YouTube comes along, that suddenly opens up the door for us to get the weird taste together and say, no, okay, there was some value in this. Let's look at this a different way.
But yeah, YouTube is definitely good for that. And yeah, I've tried using the show for that reason too. Like just this year, talking about the Thunder Warrior movies, this trilogy of Rambo knockoffs from the 80s. Because yeah, there are people like who like me saw that at the video store back in the day, and it's cool to not only talk about it but have the big clamshell VHS right there,
Mm-hmm.
and doing it in a loving way too. Like that's kind of how the show's evolved a little bit. Like at the very beginning of it, it was like kind of cartoonishly amping up the Cinema Snob yelling about it. And then it kind of like a lot of shows, they pretty much got to grow over time, and that's what we did. So then in talking about like the Thunder Warrior trilogy, there are definitely jokes at the movie's expense, but it is in kind of like a fondness sort of way.
I mean, we have gotten to the point now where you're going to be able to look at these things and you have this deep dive on you can go look into the history of how the movie got made, and that adds a layer of
Yeah.
appreciation. And that, I'm not saying it didn't happen before the internet and commentary became a thing, but it ballooned immediately. It became something the average person could do.
Oh yeah, certainly. Like beforehand, when I was a kid and if I wanted to find out some information about the movie, it'd probably be, something like the old video golden hound video retriever manual or something
Mm.
like that. And then at least I could be like, oh, okay, let me look at this director's filmography or this actor's filmography. And now, yeah, definitely the internet does help with getting a lot of backstory about these movies I've done episodes episodes on, whether it's like a James Bond knockoff or some old, porno from the 70s or something like that. No, it's
go ahead. Sorry.
Oh no, I was just gonna say it's just cool learning about more stuff like that.
What are your thoughts on Return to Oz?
I remember loving that movie. I haven't seen it in a long time. I probably haven't seen it since maybe high school, maybe even beforehand. But I did really, really like it when I was young, and I'm sure if I watched it again now, I still would. Like, it does not happen very often where it's something I liked as a kid and I watch it now and I go, oh, I hate this. It sucks. I might see more flaws in it, but it'll still be an important movie to me. And I'll still, something will still have a place in my heart. I should probably do an episode on Return to Oz sometime.
I'd love to see that.
And
I use it as an example because before IMDb came along, and actually for a while after it wasn't saved in my opinion until it hit streaming, because I would explain this movie to people and they'd say, that doesn't exist. You're making this up.
Oh, it does.
It does exist. But
Yeah.
until I could actually pull up the internet and say, look, it's right there, nobody believed me. And there are a lot of those moments that people like us will have where it's like, no, I found this thing. It's cool.
Oh, yeah. I mean, in my case, it's, convincing people that there's 4 ET pornos. And I could tell you the exact difference between all 4 of them.
Now see with porn, it's a little different to me because I come from the school of thought that somebody's going to make a porn of it somewhere. I don't have that. I don't disbelieve that at all.
Oh yeah, it's Rule 34.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I disbelieve when it's like, no, this was somebody thought this was a good idea they could make money on. That's when I'm like, you got to prove this to me here.
There'll be some creativity too in it sometimes, like E.T. the porno. I'm like, okay, well, it takes some originality to one, be like, okay, let's make a porn with someone in an E.T. costume, but to also, for no reason, make it a period piece that takes place in like Victorian age 1700s or whenever it took place. Like all right, well, it's original. I'll give it that.
They just have the costumes around and figured, hey, let's roll with it.
Yeah, they had some costumes laying around and had some sets, and we're like, okay, let's throw ET in there. Why not? We're probably on something right now.
I often wonder when I see those parodies, because they seem to deliberately title them to try to skirt the copyright laws, and so they don't get too much under fire. But it just seems like even when you have say a Justice League parody and somebody's going in wearing a Superman costume, how is that not a problem?
I think because it's parody. I think that's and also I think that's why a lot of them started titling themselves like Justice League, a XXX parody, so that it will be protected by copyright laws. I guess I'm sure that's got something to do with it. But there are still ones that do the porn spoof titles, like Wood Rocket does that. They have like Strokemon, 10-inch Mutant Ninja Turtles. That's I prefer the porn spoof titles, because like even those, like, well, some thought went into that into coming up with the title of Strokemon.
And the humor of that is just trying to say it with a straight face, or trying to get somebody else to say it with a straight face. You don't even have to pop the movie in, you just have to try to get the conversation going.
And I can now. I can just say, oh yeah, there was Strokemon. I can talk about Strokemon like I'm talking about Casablanca or something, like saying it with a straight face as if it's the most normal sounding title you can think of. I mean, I think that comes with I've seen so many of them that I'll be reviewing what's the last weird one I reviewed, like Sponge Knob Square Nuts or something like that, where my reaction to it and watching it is just kind of normal because I've seen so many of them that it's kind of like I'm not really shocked by it anymore. Like, all right, well, there's a guy in a questionable SpongeBob outfit getting a blowjob. That's my week.
And yet you get to do this for a living, which is the beauty of the
Exactly.
21st century.
Yeah, doing it for a living. And it didn't start out that way. Like none of us thought we'd be doing it for a living. We just all of us kind of started out as like, we were probably in between jobs or just did it as a lark. I know in my case, yeah, it was just YouTube was taking off. I had a lot of free time. So I kind of, yeah, created this show, and I did it for a couple of years because, yeah, I really liked doing it, and it developed a little bit of a following. And then once Blip TV came around, then we were able to start doing. They were one of the first big ones to let you like monetize this stuff. And when Blip TV came around, a lot of us were able to start making it our full-time gig. And eventually Blip TV went away, and during that time YouTube started monetizing, so we just went back to YouTube. And no, what's cool is if you do it as long as we have, you've got a big back catalog. So if you've got, like, in our case, several years, like over 10 years of a back catalog, like over 2,000 videos, it does give you some freedom because a majority of your views will come from just this giant archive, this back catalog you got. And that makes it kind of cool because then it sort of reaches a point where you're like, okay, yeah, now I can do a lot more niche stuff. I can talk more about Thunder Warrior or 2000 Maniacs or something like that, and just have it be there for however long, and just accumulate some views over time.
That's something I really try to hammer into people who are expecting overnight success when it comes
Yeah.
to things like podcasting and YouTube. Is like, well, I launched 2 months ago. Why am I not rich yet? Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I mean, you got to do it because you love it, because you have passion in it. You got to do it, like we did when we started out. Like, yeah, no one even thought we would get paid for it or if it would turn into anything. No, like,
Mhm.
so we were doing it because we love talking about these movies. And I certainly didn't get into it with the mindset of like, oh, this is gonna be huge someday, because it's a niche show. Like, yeah, I don't expect to have like a million subscribers or something like that, because I'm talking about very obscure exploitation films. But just simply being able to do it for a living is cool enough that I
Yeah.
can get on there, talk about this, and yeah, that's my work day.
Yeah. It's so many people are looking for that one video to go viral.
Yeah.
And they're not seeing that there's a huge benefit to what you can do if you have a catalog full of stuff that a decent amount of people are going to want to see. That people will look at that library and they'll just keep coming back and back. And you
Yeah.
don't get that for several years until you put out that catalog.
Yeah, a very big back catalog, a big archive. That way, yeah, people can kind of come and go as they please. They don't. We have so many videos that it's like, yeah, I don't expect. I know there's a lot of people who do watch all of it, but there is also a lot that they come to the channel, they watch some, and they probably watch a lot of other stuff for a long period of time, and then maybe come back and they'll be like, oh, well, what's kind of in his catalog for the past few months or the past couple of years? And there will be plenty of stuff there to choose from.
What draws you to exploitation movies? Because I have my answer, but I'd really like to hear yours.
Well, so my parents didn't really care what I watched when I was a kid. Like, I was really, really, I was in grade school watching slasher movies and stuff like that. And, I certainly liked being one of the only kids in the school who could do that.
Mhm.
And also, like, kind of tape them off of HBO and Cinemax and pass them around to my friends. No, I like the freedom that a lot of those movies have, where they're very unapologetic in either the story or the effects or the sleaze. but also the ones that work and the ones that are done the best are the ones where you actually are really, really engaged in the story and the grittiness and the filmmaking of it, and maybe the acting, because like in some cases where the acting can be good, or in some cases where it can be over the top and hammy, but certainly very, very entertaining. And there is just a wide variety of different ones you could look at. You could put on a slasher movie, you could put on a Amazon cannibal movie, an Italian zombie movie, a giallo flick, a sex comedy, an 80s shenanigans movie or something like that. There's a wide variety of different subgenres for whatever mood that you're in. It's kind of its own big category that has all of the genres of a mainstream movie, action, comedy, horror, and all of that, but certainly very gritty and kind of underground, so that makes it fun to watch, and you might not know exactly what you're getting into and hopefully be kind of surprised.
The ones I really gravitate toward they tended to be toward the beginning of the genre. And the in joke was that the real exploitation was happening on behalf of the audience. They thought they were
Yeah.
going to see something being exploited, but in fact, they were just somebody was trying to put out a sleazy story to get their money.
Oh, sure.
So you would have, and I'm just going to make up something like, teenage nymphos on drugs or something, and there would actually be very few teenagers, very few nymphos, and really no drugs. But by the time you found that out, your money was gone.
Yeah.
I love that. It reflects something that we can't get now when so much of our material is clickbait and sensationalized and BuzzFeedy. You lose the idea of what was happening when you couldn't see something like that without going through extraordinary effort.
Oh yeah, I like the movie Snuff is a good example of that.
Mhm.
I don't know if you've seen this movie.
I have not.
It's from the 70s, and it was marketed, I mean, it's called Snuff, so it's marketed like, ooh, it could be a snuff film or something like that. And then you see the movie, and what it is, it's a pre-existing movie. I think it was called The Slaughter, but it was a exploitation flick about the Manson family, or it was inspired by the Manson family. Like the guy's called something else in it, but it's like, okay, this is definitely inspired by Charles Manson. You're watching the whole movie, and it's just that until
Mhm.
you get to the last 3 minutes where it's new footage, where suddenly the quote filmmakers of this movie you've been watching like kill the script girl or something like that. So and like the effects are kind of bad, but like they're simultaneously bad, but also kind of impressive. Like, so it's like that. It's like you kind of went for that, for like the 70s version of clickbait, sort of. Yeah,
Mhm,
like you
mhm.
said. And then, oh, by the end, that's where the snuff stuff happens.
And I feel like this is we're now at a point now where people like us can appreciate the phases that filmmaking has gone through.
Mm-hmm.
When the film was found in the cinema, and then it had a phase where it was in the home, and now we're having a phase where it's then it was on disc, and then it was in streaming, and
Yeah.
these have all brought different levels of awareness of how these things came to be.
Yeah. And sometimes you'll still go see something that, because I mean, so many movies come out now, it's insane. And I will still see something sometimes where it's like, oh, I haven't seen this like trap in a while. I went to go see a movie a few days ago. The name of the movie is First Responders.
Mhm.
It's in theater. Oh, I don't think it's still in theaters, but it was a Fathom event, so it played for like 2 or 3 days, and I went to it. I was the only one in the theater, and all I knew going in was that it's a faith-based movie, and like the title suggests, it's about first
Mhm.
responders. Now, what I didn't expect going in is that 50% of the movie is reused footage from a movie from a few years ago called The Trump Prophecy, where it's the same director, and that movie is about a firefighter with PTSD who then he's getting haunted by demons, and then he sees this floating disco ball god orb that starts giving him like political advice. And then I go see this movie a few days ago called First Responders. 50% of it is footage from that movie. There's one plot about a cop who is shot and in the line of duty and is in the hospital. And then the rest of it is all cobbled together, the PTSD plot from the Trump prophecy. They take out all the political stuff like the God orb and all of that. And there is also like new footage that they shot with the actors, and you can tell it's new footage because they have different hair now and they look a little older. Like, but I'm sitting there in the theater like, I never thought I would see this again, where I'm like going to see a movie and it's 50% reused footage from another movie.
That's basically how Power Rangers got made.
That, yeah, this reminded me more of something like Merlin's Shop of Mystical Wonders,
Sure.
where half of the movie is footage from the director's previous movie called The Devil's Gift, or like half of Silent Night, Deadly Night 2 being the first one. I put it in like that camp, and it was a really bad movie, but I was fascinated.
Santa Claus and the Ice Cream Bunny.
Oh yeah, exactly, like something like that. Yeah.
Now that was a movie that made me feel very exploited.
I love those 70s drive-in kids movies where they are just some of the scariest horror films of the 70s, and they're not even trying to be. like the Magic Christmas Tree and Wizzo the Clown and stuff like that.
We're just doing blatant riff tracks promotion now, and I'm on board with that.
Oh yeah, it is like prime riff tracks material. Like Fun in Balloon Land, that's a popular one I did, and it's also a riff tracks episode.
So let me see if I can, because you may be one of the few people on the planet who might be able to reference this. A movie is probably a short film, maybe 15 minutes long at the most, called The Magic House. I'm guessing early 70s.
Yeah.
You know this one?
No.
Okay. Shoot. I remember watching this in school as a kid, and it was the most god-awful thing ever, and I would love to have it because I'm sure the rights have expired, and I would riff tracks the hell out of that thing.
It might be floating around somewhere. Like I know Something Weird Videos got like a bunch of collections of shorts and a lot of it stuff like that. Yeah, I grew up in school not seeing a lot because I went to religious schools, and I didn't see not a lot of the shorts from the 70s that they'd show us. With us, it was stuff from the 80s, like Colby the Christian Computer. And what were some other ones? I mean, I was in school during like the height of like Just Say No and Dare and all that, so we would have like a lot of McGruff shorts we would watch.
You and I seem to be about the same age, and the educational films that we're familiar with, they were kind of on their way out by that point, but every once in a while some teacher would get bored enough to dust one off and try to get the projector working again. It didn't not happen. And that was how I ended up seeing The Magic House.
Yeah, some of those I didn't see back then. Maybe a couple, like kind of like you said, if the teacher just had it sitting around, but a majority of them were the educational shorts from like the 80s, and they were usually religious too.
What I remember most, there was one that was actually pretty new at the time. It was School Bus Safety.
Yeah.
And they sat us all down, and I remember just watching it because the video was like, make sure when you get into the bus you buckle your seatbelt. Like, we don't have any.
Yeah.
And obey the little flashing stop sign. We don't have that either. This video is useless because it's talking about this magic school bus that doesn't exist.
Oh, perfect. perfect.
But it chewed up 30 minutes of class time, and I think that's all anybody cared about.
That's what we loved about it. Like when I was in junior high, on days like that, we would watch Carmen music videos. I'm not sure if you know who Carmen is, but he was like he passed away not too long ago, but he was awesome. He was this Christian pop singer and very charismatic, and his videos were just, they were catchy and they were fun, and we would love watching those like on those particular days, because there would be some wild stuff in there. He's got a song called Satan Bites the Dust, where it's a Western where he's like the new marshal in town and goes to the saloon and just starts like shooting demons and shit. And then Satan shows up like looking like just like an old, like looking like Buford Tannen from Back to the Future 3. And it's so good.
If this was a game, I'd be playing it. I mean, that
Oh
sounds
yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, his videos are over on YouTube, and like eventually I did start spotlighting a lot of his stuff. So we have a few episodes on his. He's got one, it's called Great God, where it's in medieval times, and one where he's in like a haunted house, and yeah, that I really love looking at those movies, those music videos.
So what are you working on in the near future?
Right now it's 1960 in film. And that hopefully it'll be up in a couple of weeks. So that one is going to be over on Channel Awesome, and it'll probably be about 2 hours long. And once I get done with that one, because like I said, I'm kind of starting to drift more into focusing on the supersized episodes. But oddly enough, usually that means like I actually have more content on my channel because I can do more of those shorter reviews. But once I get done with the 1960 video, I'll probably do like a longer episode on the Jack Frost movies, the Killer Snowman films. I'm kind of surprised. I haven't gotten to those sooner, but those I'll be looking at.
The types of movies you like, there are many installments of them, so you have enough to go through.
Exactly. I know that there's at least 2 of the Jack Frost movies. I can't remember if there was like a versus movie or not featuring the Killer Snowman, but I know there's at least 2 of them, so it'll be at the least it'll be a double feature episode.
I'm going to point people toward your website in the show notes of the episode.
Yeah, no problem.
Where else can people follow your adventures on the internet?
You can subscribe to me over at youtube.com/Stoned Gremlin Productions. You can follow me on Twitter at the Cinema Snob. We've got an archive site that's the cinemasnob.com, and also we're on channelawesome.com as well.
All of that's also going to be in the show notes. Thank you so much for being here. I've had a great time. I could keep going, but I want to respect both your time and mine. So please come on back anytime.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm totally down anytime. Thank you so much for having me.